Have you ever felt like you're constantly balancing work and family, but somehow, no matter how hard you try, you end up feeling like you're doing half a job on both fronts? I know it's something that I struggle with myself. Today's guest has also been there as well, and she's here to share how she's turned things around for herself and her business. Ros Davis is a qualified life coach with 15 years of coaching experience and 2 decades of working in large global corporations. She is a busy mum of two, and she knows firsthand how exhaustion and guilt come with trying to manage a successful career, something that I think obviously this podcast is based around, while raising a family. But after years of trial and error, she has found how sort of a more balanced version of how to work this, and how to start loving her life again. She's passionate about helping mums and parents do the same. And also, if you are a cake fan, you are going to love this as well, because Ros and her family are obsessed with baking chocolate cakes. Even though she has admitted herself that her decoration skills are probably not the best. I completely get this because I suck at decorating cakes as well. I think they're awesome, but they're probably not. Lovely to have you on the show, Ross. Lovely
Oh,
to have
lovely
you
to
on.
be
How
here,
are you?
Lucy. I'm really
It's a
good. Thank you
pleasure.
so much for having me, and thank you for that intro.
Absolute pleasure to have you on. So, yeah, do you want to start by telling everyone a little bit about you and how you got started with your coaching? And
Yeah. So, as you said, I worked for around 20 years in these big global businesses. So, companies like Mars and Diageo and Danone. So, really big household names with huge brands. And it was such a big part of who I was before I had kids in particular. And I loved the challenge. I loved the progress. I loved juggling loads of things at a time. And that was who I was. I took on challenges and I figured out a way to make things happen. And it filled me with so much energy. Then I had my first child and it was all good. I was able to carry on doing it. I felt fulfilled. I really felt like I was living the dream. I was working full time, and at the time it was probably 18 months old when all of this was going on. We relocated to Ireland. So we had this big house move. I had to find another job, leaving this big career. And luckily, I was able to find another really big, really exciting role that just really motivated me, because I was working with baby brands. So I was actually working for water wipes in Ireland, and I use them all the time. So I'm not plugging them, but I love working with baby brands. And I really felt like this is where I'm meant to be. I'm living the dream. And I got that job when I was 5 months pregnant with our second. I was sat there going, this doesn't happen to people. This is amazing. I'm really living it all, having it all, both the career and having the kids. But then when I had my second, something just changed in me, I think. So I was 41 when I had my second, and I started to think, I'm quite tired. I'm in my midlife and I don't really want to carry on my life in this way, being completely dedicated to work, as well as I was supporting the kids as well. But I started to get to a point where it was quite difficult to juggle it all. I decided I wanted to go part-time, and that was going to be the silver bullet result for me. I will just go part-time and then I'll be able to be there for the kids when they need me. And this was during COVID. So whenever there was sickness, there was a big chunk of time that the kids had to be at home because they needed to go and get tested and all these things, because in Ireland, that was the rules at the time. So there were a lot of tension points for me that just made me go, this is getting harder and harder to manage mentally, more than sort of physically or operationally. It was the mental load of looking after the kids, wanting to be a fully engaged mum and maintain a big part of me that was so important to me. I went back to work when our second was only 6 months old, because that's who I am, right? I work really hard. I take on challenges. I need to do this for me. I was doing it for me. But what happened after about a year of trying to juggle all of that, even though I was working part-time, is I ended up burning out, because I was acting like I could do 100% on both. And when we talk about balance, right, we always think it's a trade-off between work and life, but that's not doing 100%, right? You do need to be able to manage the ups and downs. So I did burn out trying to manage my career and my life in a way that just wasn't sustainable. And as you said, I'd been coaching for around 15 years as an add-on to my big corporate roles. And I decided I had been putting off actually doing a coaching course and properly qualifying for about 7 years. So this burnout was the excuse I needed to go, right, I'm going to get back to what I actually enjoy and supporting other people to make the choices that I was not able to make for myself when I burnt out, supporting people to actually decide what is important to me and focus on that rather than what used to be important to me before I had kids and trying to do it all. I decided I was going to completely shift my career into coaching, and I qualified as a coach. And now I support working mums to avoid the situation that I got myself into, because I've spent the last 8 years working on self-development and how you can make these choices. But particularly since I burnt out, which was just over 3 years ago, I've built that into my support for my clients to be able to judge and understand when they're on the road to burnout so that they can make the decisions that work for them before it happens. So yeah, I'm a life coach, but I have a lot of strings to my bow, I guess, with that background.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a hard one, isn't it? Because obviously the podcast itself is called Balancing Business and Babies, and this is going to be kind of a controversial take, I suppose, on it. It's to me, it's kind of like that age-old question of, can women have it all? And I think that there are elements of us being able to, but if I'm honest with myself, I sort of think that we can't, because I feel like that something gives somewhere, and it's either we either end up doing the same as what you were talking about and burning out because we're trying to achieve everything that we can, or something sort of gives, either we drop a ball with work or we drop a ball with our families because we're spending too much time at work. And I think we can get to that stage where we are running successful businesses and running a successful household as well, and bringing up children. I'm not saying it's not entirely possible, but I think we need to kind of learn how to delegate more as well. I think in businesses, I think a lot of the time parents sort of feel we've got to do everything. We've got to be the one that is, doing everything in the household and doing everything in our businesses. When if you're lucky enough to have a partner or a husband, outsource to your husband or your partner and say, right, it's your turn. You do this. I will do this. You do this, and create tasks for each other to be able to do it. And likewise in your business, you don't have to do everything in your business. You can outsource to VAs. You can, outsource your social media. You can, but we still have this kind of feeling of, I need to do it myself. And we keep holding on to that for some reason.
And that's the danger, isn't it? That if we define having it all as literally, I am still working exactly how I was before I have kids. And I'm actually the all-in 100% mum when I'm with the kids, and running the house and being a perfect daughter and supporting the broader family, all of those things. Then if you consider that's all, then you can't have that if you're trying to do it all yourself. But the wonderful thing, I think, personally, in my take around balance, is that you can define what's the right balance for you. So as long as you accept that, life is busy, life is chaotic, not everything's going to go to plan, and you build in a bit of flexibility around that, then actually, if you define your all as being, I will give work 100% my attention when I'm there, but I will absolutely hold the line and switch off when I'm with my kids, you can have it all. If you define all as what matters to you, then the mental load, the guilt, everything just feels so much lighter, because you're not putting that pressure on yourself to be perfect all of the time and delivering as you used to. I think there's two big elements at play here of what actually is important to you to do yourself, and what are your expectations of yourself in this new reality, because kids are a big responsibility. Unless you do accept help and ask for help, it will always be very hard to do exactly the same job as you were doing before to the same level. So it's always about considering what matters to me. And my husband and I are very clear, even when I was commercial VP, when I was pregnant with our second, we were both in very senior positions, and we both said we do not want to get a nanny because it's really important to us to do the drop-offs, to do the pickups, to be there for the kids. Yes, we will bring in childcare when we need it, but for certain hours and days when I'm working, we're not going to constantly have somebody there supporting our kids when we want to do it ourselves, because that's really important. So just being able to judge what are the things that matter to me, and actually what can I delegate, give to somebody else, like the massive pile of washing. My husband deals with the massive pile of clean washing when it comes out of the machine, because I have no patience or time for it. There are other
Yeah.
things I would rather spend my time on. So knowing what matters to you is absolutely fundamental.
Yeah, definitely. And I think another thing that I've kind of picked up on as well, which is something that I do myself, and I think it's very dangerous to do, is comparing yourself to other people. I'm terrible at doing this. I'm very active on social media, and I love social media, and I think for businesses, social media has been a godsend. But there are a lot of negatives to social media, being that I follow a lot of like people in my niche, social media managers, Pinterest managers, things like this, that are in their 20s, they're single and they haven't got children. So they're not in my target demographic at all. But I follow them because I like their content and I like their information. But then I find myself comparing myself to them when they're saying, oh, I've just hit a 20k month or a 30k month or things like this. And I'm thinking, why haven't I done that? Why can't I do that? And then I have to constantly check myself and go, right, you're 36 years old, you've got children, and you've got other priorities. That's great for them that they're doing that, but they haven't got the same priorities. They probably don't have a house that they've got, bills to pay on. They're probably maybe living with their parents still, or they may have a little 1-bedroom flat that they're not quite paying the same amount of rent on, And we constantly kind of compare ourselves to people that are not in the same zone as us, and it is quite dangerous and damaging to your mental health, I think, to do that.
Yeah, there's a saying in coaching, which is comparison is the thief of joy, because all of the things that you may have got joy from get belittled by the louder voice, which goes, well, you could have done that. You haven't done this. When are you going to finish that? Because when you're a working mum in particular, there are so many things that you could do. The list is never ending. It's never going to be, you're never going to complete the list because you want to do your best for your family. So there's always more things you want to do, and you want to do the best for your business. And I think particularly if you are a business owner as well, you don't switch it off. You can, if you want to, if you really try, switch off from a job that you're employed by somebody else. It's always there ticking in the background. You're just maybe able to push it to the back if you're really good at it. But this comparing ourselves to others, I think the big realization for me, because I do that a lot as well, and I think most women do in particular, but the big thing that shifted my perspective was to think, what's important to me is maybe not important to them. In the same way, we are all different. What matters to us and what we prioritize on a daily basis will be different. So, if I think about what used to be important to me, I would move heaven and earth to be able to go for a long run on the weekend. Actually, if I now put the two things side by side, do I want to go for a long run? Let's forget the fact that I probably can't do it anymore because I'm menopausal and broken. But put that side by side with spending the morning with the kids, having fun, going to a cafe and maybe go look around a shop or something, just experiencing time with them. I would much rather be with them. And that's what's important to me. So those people that are able to have these big successes, if they do have kids, maybe they take more advantage of childcare support and childcare options because that's what they want, because they want to be able to focus solidly on their business. But if you want to be with your kids, it's what you want. And that's absolutely fine. We are all different. And it's really the shift that you can make if you tap into what's important to me, not everybody else. Stop thinking that people will judge you, because I'm telling you, no one is judging you for wanting to be with your kids or wanting to focus on your business. We're just different, and that's okay.
Yeah, definitely. We've kind of touched on it with kind of the guilt that parents feel around their business. With regards to coaching, I know potentially the guilt would kind of come into that with what you do, is that I'm thinking that maybe some of the working parents may see going to someone in your niche or someone like you, a coaching specialist, that they're admitting failure to a certain extent because they're doing it all, and then they feel like they failed because they need help in some way.
Yeah.
How do you coach mums and parents through that and help them to kind of overcome that guilt and start taking time out for themselves maybe, or prioritize other things that they need to focus on?
Yeah, there's so much underneath this, any of feelings of mum guilt or like asking for help means you failed. And I hear it a lot. You're right. It's underlying a lot of the challenges and feeling of heavy mental load that a lot of mums have, or working mums in particular. How I support people to overcome that is just to help them tap into what really are you afraid of by asking for help. So I often ask people to try and explain to me why they can't accept help, or why they don't think they should accept help. And often when they start talking about it, they'll say things like, I know it's nonsense and I shouldn't say this, and I know this isn't true, but I feel like. And when you say, I know this isn't true, but I feel like, that's a limiting belief that's completely not true, but will be sitting underneath these actions. So it's driving actions like, I need to work until 11 o'clock at night. I need to pick the kids up myself every single day, do all the drops and all the pickups, when actually the grandparents are asking to help and I'm saying no. So there's this kind of self-sabotage that we go through because of some limiting beliefs that we have. And they can come from anywhere, right? They can come from childhood, what you've been exposed to growing up. They can come from seeing somebody be successful because they didn't ask for any help. And we just build up these beliefs that sometimes we build up beliefs that we have to do everything for ourselves. But when you ask, okay, what makes you think that? And is it true? It kind of starts to unravel, and people can pick into it themselves and pick it apart themselves and go, actually, I know that's not true. And then I can support them to reframe that belief as something else. So I worked with a client quite recently where she was finding herself working really late into the night because she felt like she had to prove she could do a full-time job in part-time hours. So she'd taken the time to be with her kids, but was still working evenings, still working on her days off, because she felt people were judging her for not being available 24/7. But underlying all of that was this, I can't possibly ask for help because that shows I'm failing. That shows I can't do the full-time job in the part-time hours. But when you dig into it and you ask, okay, do you need to do the full-time job in the part-time hours? She kind of went, no. And then you ask, what's that leading to when you behave in that way? And she could really easily reel off 10 things that were not helping her. So reframing the belief to be, okay, what I need to do instead is to be really clear what my boundaries are at work, be clear that I only work part-time, and look at all this amazing stuff I am doing, but I'm not going to get back to you on my weekend. And everyone was fine with that. So when you can understand what's actually holding you back or creating these unhelpful behaviors, you can shift your perspective a little bit to reframe the belief to be more helpful and test out that that is true. So if you believe that actually it's not that I need to work all the hours, but I need to work a reasonable amount of hours to get the job done, and it's okay to have my weekends to myself, then if you believe that, you prove yourself right. Okay, you just do a few things like telling people that you're not going to answer emails at the weekend and see what happens, and it's fine. So pushing yourself a little bit to just prove yourself wrong is the key to getting under the skin of what's actually going on for you, and why maybe not asking for help has become a habit that you've built up.
Yeah, I like how you said that about just sort of rephrasing things in your head, and it's something really simple to do, because I think I'm guilty of doing it myself. I'm a very sort of negative thinker. I always have been. I'm riddled with anxiety. I overthink everything, and it's one of those things I need to work on myself. But yeah, you saying that about just rethinking certain things and just rewording things in your own head can make it slightly different. With regards to going back to your career in corporate world, and working
Yeah.
with the big brands that you work with, like Mars. Did you say Mars? Yeah, you said Mars, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a pretty big corporation to work for.
Yeah.
How do you think working for big corporations like that, how did becoming a mum change your perspective on having a career and your personal life? How do you think that sort of tied in with becoming a mum?
Yeah, there's loads of things going on in my head right now. What I could answer. There's so many different routes you could go down with this. But I think the biggest thing for me was I realized how much I defined myself with my work. So, if somebody asks you at a party, if you meet someone for the first time in the playground or a party or whatever, if somebody says to you, you know, whoever, this is what I do, you immediately say, well, this is my job. You reply with your job. And I think it's become so ingrained in our society that you define yourself by what you do as a job. It's very rare that when we introduce ourselves, we say, oh, I have 2 kids and I love being with my kids. Oh, and by the way, I have a job. So we all define ourselves to some extent by the job that we have. And I think when I had children, or particularly with our second, I started to realize that it wasn't healthy to define myself solely by what I did as a job. So, and I didn't figure it out for a while. And that's probably what led me to burning out, because I was so fixated on I have to over deliver. I have to show everyone that I'm still capable, even though I have kids. And it was like kids are holding me back from being who I used to be. And that feels awful to admit, because no one wants to feel like that. No one wants to feel like their family or their kids are holding them back, whether they're running their own business or working in a corporation. But when I recognized that was how I felt, that helped me to go, you know what? I don't want to feel like that. I'm not comfortable with this. So having kids enabled me to go, okay, what are the things that I want in my life? And what is it that I get from work, or I used to get from work before I had kids, that I can get somewhere else? So if I can define me as a person who experiences growth, progress, feeling useful, delivering things, getting into problems and solving them, rather than all of that good experience being just at work, then I can find ways to feel fulfilled, to still deliver on my commitments to myself, my identity, because those things are really important to me. They're at my core. I'm not going to change those, in any time. I don't want to change them. They're what drives me. So finding where I can get those outside of work or in a different environment has been so important to be able to balance kids and career, because now my career is supporting working mums to make the choices that matter for them. And I think for so long, I considered my corporate career as enabling others to make the choices that deliver performance. And actually, that wasn't what drove me. I wasn't that interested in delivering the business number. I was interested in delivering empowerment and personal growth for individuals. I just happened to be doing it in a corporate environment, and now I can do it through coaching. So I found a career that motivates me more than anything I've ever done, and I can be flexible in how I use my time, because I build the model. I build how much time I spend with people one-to-one, and how much I enable people through digital programs and group coaching that doesn't take up as much of my time, but I'm still getting the fulfillment and they're still getting the results. So if you look at your defines you as component parts, you can pick where you fulfill each of them.
Yeah. One of the things that I struggle with myself, and I think this is probably something that most parents that I've spoken to on the podcast have struggled with, is at the moment, my son Jacob, he's at school, and obviously that is kind of my client hours and my working hours now fall around school hours. And that's when I kind of get the majority of my work done. I may occasionally do work at night or in the evening. I try not to, but as we sort of mentioned, it does kind of creep in occasionally. It's going back to the having boundaries. I've got zero boundaries in my business. I need to really work on it myself. But one of the things that I struggle with more is like school holidays. And there is obviously an inordinate amount of school holidays, as we know.
Yep.
You've got the half terms, the inset days, you've got the 6-week holidays, Christmas. I think they've got one coming up in a couple of weeks. It's just ridiculous the amount of times they have off. The pressure to kind of continue with your work and balance that kind of intensifies for most parents during school holidays. What advice would you kind of give to mums that are maybe struggling to keep on top of everything during holidays?
Yeah, and I feel it as well. This summer holiday was actually our first holiday when our son was home, because before that he'd been in a preschool setting where he could be there the whole summer. So we had 6 weeks with him at home, and it was the first time we'd had that dynamic when my husband's working full time and I'm running my own business. So I completely get it, and it is so hard. But I think everything is a choice, and that's what I try to support working mums to figure out what choice they're making. Because if we know what's important to us and we listen to what's going on in our head, if we are feeling a lot of guilt or a lot of resentment, or that we're being held back, there's something not quite right in the actions you're taking. So it's not matching up to what you want to do. And yes, there are obviously financial constraints around how the hours you have to work when we have a family set up, as well as being a business owner or working for a corporation even. But within the confines of that, how can you make choices that enable you to feel at peace with those choices? Because a lot of the time we do things that we feel like we should be doing, and they're not completely aligned to what we actually want to do. So actually, is it the end of the world if you say, you know what, over the summer, can I go down to a 4-day week? Or, you know, if you are working for yourself, can you work the rest of your year so that you are more available to your children during the summer holiday? So what we did, and everyone's different, so you know, I'm not recommending this is a pattern that everyone take on over summer holidays, but I went down to a 2-day working week, and 2 days a week my son was at home with me. 2 days a week he was in an activity club so that I could have my 2 working days, and the other day of the week he was either with his dad or with my mum. So that worked for 6 weeks. We had 6.5. So that final sort of 3 days was utter chaos. And I was trying to work and feeling pulled all over the place, and it was awful. But I just resolved to go, right, next year we do the whole holiday in that structured way, because that is what works for us. And if you want to be more available to your kids over the summer holiday, can you work the rest of your business so that you go down to a maintenance level over the summer, or have automated more things so that you're available to your kids? Everything is a choice. The guilt and resentment and mental load and pressure often comes from thinking we've made the choice, but we haven't really made the choice. We're trying to do it all. So really making the choices and committing to those is what will lift the guilt, lift the resentment, make you feel like you're actually should be doing what you want to do. Because we could probably all try and work and juggle the kids, but what are you sacrificing to be able to do that? Possibly
Exactly.
your mental health, definitely your physical health, that we're just exhausted. And is it worth that? So making conscious choices where you're focusing your attention. And I actually have loads of hints and tips in my Facebook group for how to literally focus your mind when you have to switch from one to the other, because that is a skill that all working mums need.
Yeah. And it's a lot harder than it sounds as well, going from that kind of work mentality where you're sort of hyper focused on your business, especially when the children are here, like you say, in the holidays, and you're kind of constantly going from one thing to another. It is really difficult to kind of switch out of that and go from mum mode, boss mode, mum mode, boss mode, mum mode, boss mode. It's really difficult. And like you say, it is easy for parents to burn out. And so one of the things that I actually did this year with the 6 weeks that have just finished, which I need to ramp up for next year, because it was good in a way. I kind of realised what I'd not done this time round so that I can pick it up for next year. But I outsourced to another VA for them to come in just during the 6-week holidays to take over my own social media platforms for the 6-week holidays so that I knew
Yeah.
all of my content was going to be scheduled, it was going to go out, it was going to be created. I'd done all of the copy and everything prior to it. All it needed to be done was kind of uploaded and put together. So I had someone doing that for me in the 6-week holidays. And then for my client work, anything big that I knew was necessarily for me to do, I did most of that myself before the 6-week holidays. So that any little things that could be outsourced, I outsourced to another VA, and I had like an associate VA come on with a couple of my clients, and I was sort of managing them in the background, but it was the difference between me doing a 4 or 5 hour day to doing maybe half an hour to an hour a day. And I was literally just jumping on to manage, this needs to be done. Did you do that? Is the client happy? What do we need to do tomorrow? And just manage it that way. And it did help a lot. But I realized that doing that there were actually other things in my business that I could outsource. So next year, I'm hoping to get it down that I don't need to work in the 6-week holidays now. And I can literally just take all of that holiday off, because I know what I can do by giving the work and the job to someone else, essentially, to keep the business ticking over. But it does take a lot to kind of get to that place. I've been going on in my business now for 4.5 years, and this is the first year that I've actually outsourced to other people, because I'm like a lot of the parents. I feel like this is my business, it's my baby. I don't want anyone else coming in and either potentially kind of messing it up, and then my clients aren't happy, or they do a great job and then I feel like I failed because, it should have been me doing it, which is stupid, because the only way that we're going to grow as business owners and businesses is to hand over occasionally to other people so that we can focus on what we want to do, either our children and families, or bringing in more clients into the business if that's the way we're going with the business.
Yeah, and I think that goes for everything in life as well as with your business, because asking for help, whether that's somebody to pick the kids up or somebody to categorize your Facebook entry questions for people joining a community group like I have, I outsourced that over the summer, and that's the first time I've outsourced anything. But I could see this massive pile of admin building up that I was never going to get to. And I just had to stop and be honest with myself. Am I going to go do a good job if I try and tackle that? No, I'm not. Am I going to support my clients if I try and tackle that? No, I'm not. So somebody else who wanted to come and work for me could do it. And, they got something out of it because they got some work, but they also got to learn about what I'm doing. And now we're good friends, and she's into everything that I do and just following me as well. But I got to spend time on what really matters in my business, like having my one-to-one coaching calls, onboarding clients to the programs, for the group coaching. So just knowing what actually needs your attention and being honest with yourself. How much can you do? You'd be surprised how much of an impact it takes to just, even every month, just going, okay, what's for me and what's for somebody else, and just figuring out a way to do it. Because one of the wonderful things about living in the digital connected age that we do, people can pick up pretty much anything quite quickly. So just being brave and giving a few little bits of what you do to somebody else to see how it goes. And you don't have to stick to it forever. And I think the same is true with life. If a grandparent is really keen to pick up from school, but you've never allowed them to, do it once. What's the worst that can happen? Let's just see how it goes, and show yourself that change is possible. Show yourself that you don't have to do everything yourself, because when you give yourself that little gift of, actually, someone else is going to do this for me, it feels great when you've not, that's something lifted off your to-do list and out of your brain to give you a bit more thinking time.
Yeah, definitely. What's one piece of advice that you would give parents or mums that are listening to help them maintain their energy and love for what they're doing without sacrificing their family time?
That is a really big ask. I'm trying to think of one thing rather than 10. Well, I think just be yourself and be honest about what you actually need. And I know we've talked about it quite a lot, but I genuinely believe, because I've experienced it myself and my clients experience it, when you are really yourself and you are honest what you need to get from your work, but you're also willing to give to your work, if you're honest about that, you're much more likely to be able to trust your intuition to just do it and not have to overthink everything and plan everything to the nth degree. And I love a plan, and I do genuinely think being organized is so helpful when you're a working parent, because you know that you're not going to drop a ball and leave one of the kids at school for half an hour like I did at the beginning of last year, just forget about them and then have to
We've
go.
all been there.
But yeah, it happens. But know who you are and just be yourself, because if you feel like you have to put on armor or a persona to go to work and to show up, then that is going to drain your energy faster than anything else. So be yourself, know what matters to you, and don't be afraid to listen when you're getting a signal from either your body or your mind going, this isn't right. Just act on it. Because I think we all think ourselves impervious to burnout. You know, I won't burn out. That doesn't happen to me. I didn't realize I had burnt out until about 6 months after I had, because you don't think that happens to you. You just think I was really tired, or work was just too busy. It's not always the external thing that drives the burnout. It's very often our own internal processing of what's going on for us and then how we respond to it. So knowing what matters to you, who you really are, and just being you, trust your intuition, and it's so much easier to juggle everything.
I like that. That's a good piece of advice. So I think to end on then, do you want to expand on the cake baking? I touched on it in the intro.
Yes.
Where's this love of cake baking come from, and why do you not think you're very good with decorating?
Right. I grew up, my mum didn't work until I was about 8 years old. So I have a lot of memories when I was really young of baking cakes and making pizzas and stuff with my mum. So it's really important to me. This is one of the things I know about myself as a mum. I really want to experience those moments with my kids, but 9 times out of 10, obviously, it's quite challenging involving them in everything. So I have one go-to recipe. It's a Mary Best Berry chocolate recipe. And every birthday, everyone gets the same cake, because I know it's going to work. I know the kids can make it too. Chuck everything in a bowl and just stick it in the machine and it works. But the decorating is quite unruly. So I love it when the kids are not involved in the decorating, because obviously I can try and do it myself. But my secret tip is, when it's for kids, just buy toys, little tiny dinosaurs or whatever, stick them on the cake.
Oh,
The kids think it's incredible. And I've just had to put dinosaurs on a green cake. It's brilliant. But underneath, it's chocolate. So that's one way of doing it. But the not so good decorating tends to come when the kids are involved. When I just have given up trying to make it look pretty, I would rather have the experience and the hilarity of them trying to do rainbow unicorn swirls with a piping bag and it just exploding everywhere. It's just too much fun. Let the cake look like an absolute disaster zone, because it's just so much fun doing it, and it still tastes good, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I bake cakes with my little boy. He loves baking cakes. Well, he doesn't like the baking. He likes cracking eggs. That's his favourite thing to do.
Yeah.
I say crack. Although he did do it once actually without getting shell in it, which I was quite impressed by, considering he's 4.5.
That's
But
good.
the majority of the time it's just shell mixed with egg. So then I have to kind of secretly hop off, because I don't want him to feel like a failure. So I sort of secretly hop off and do the eggs again before it goes in the cake. But yeah, most of the time we buy the little kits that have got. The last one we did was what was it? A science slime cake. They're like little fairy cakes. Yeah, that's what they're called, aren't they? Fairy cakes.
Yeah.
And you make slime, but it's edible. And that was fantastic. My stepdaughter and my son absolutely loved making that, because you have to do it on the stove. Safety obviously comes first, but they were both stirring. You put it in and you add the water, and it goes into this like green slime, and that becomes your kind of icing.
Nice.
It didn't taste very nice, but it was fun to make it.
Well, that's all that counts.
Yeah, they tasted really quite weird, but it was good to make. And I made my little boy a superhero cake as well once for his birthday. I think that was for his
sounds amazing.
first birthday. I didn't want to buy him a cake for his first birthday, and I got one of the It was like a little banner that goes around the side, and it had like a little topper that you can
Yeah.
buy off Amazon. I was quite impressed with it. Cake making
As
is a
long as they
great,
like it. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Cake making is a great activity for children, especially if they're kids that like getting messy as well.
Yeah, they love it. So good.
It's been lovely having you on, Roz. Do you want to let people know where they can come and find you for any information? And obviously, I will put Roz's details in the show notes as well afterwards. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So everyone can find me on rosdavis.com, which is Davies. But also, if you're looking for a community of mums all balancing work and their life, I have a free Facebook group where I share hints and tips and go live every week with videos. And that's called Authentic and Energized Mums. So there's about 850 mums in there. So feel free to come and join us. The more the merrier. And the program that I run to support busy working mums with coaching and group coaching and lots of digital content to help you to find a balance that works for you. That's called Balanced Mum Academy. So you can find that through my webpage or in the Facebook group. So welcome to come and find out about it.
Fantastic. And like I say, I will pop Roz's group in the show notes and Roz's details as well. So once again, Roz, lovely to have you on the show.
It's been a pleasure
talking
Thanks,
with
Lucy.
you.
And, wonderful. Take care.
And you, and we will see everyone else next week.